Hey everybody, I'm Sean Robinson.
I'm Carson Grubaugh with a really recovered face now.
Oh, good. As you can tell from our view here, we're going to be talking some tech stuff. And today we're going to be talking about how to take samples of text or your own text and make a font out of it using mostly free parts. And I know some of the things that we're going to be talking about here are generally known, and some of these things are really nitpicky things that I have have strong opinions about. Um, and so hopefully, the cross section will be interesting to you. So let's take a look real quick at the tools we're going to be using. So Carson, you ever done this before?
No, absolutely not. I'm also curious about the legality of, like, say we scanned an old
Yes.
comic and got like a full font off of like Ben Oda hand lettering or something.
Yeah. So believe it or not, there are actual court rulings about this, and you cannot um, you cannot copyright a typeface, and so you can do whatever you want with someone else's letter. So
Oh,
Ben Oda beware. Now selling it under the name Ben Oda might cause you some problems, but like little known fact that Comic Sans is likely an adaptation of Dave Gibbons' uh, writing from Watchmen.
hmm.
So letters are fair game, letter shapes are fair game, and it makes sense to keep that as a public domain thing because, you know, that's how we communicate with each other. Um,
Yeah,
so
this is gonna ruin me though, because now I'm gonna go back through Grant Man and like I'm gonna make a font for each page based on each artist's common letterer.
oh man, don't do that.
I'm
don't
gonna do it. I'm gonna lose my mind doing it, but
don't do this thing, Carson.
I'm gonna do it.
All right, so here's the tools we're going to use. Now, this first tool that we're going to use is, I think, probably common knowledge. So calligrapher.com. Notice the spelling, no e at the end.
Yeah.
Calligrapher.com is a free tool that you can use to get your font most of the way. Most of the way there. You cannot. It would be very difficult to produce something that is 100% um, professional looking with just the results from calligrapher.com.
Hmm.
Um, for reasons that we're going to talk about, specifically kerning. So kerning is when you have two letters that are meant to be paired, and so their spacing is meant to be reflective of the letters themselves. So if you can imagine like a P shape and an O shape next to each other, if it's P O, the O would probably nest inside with the P, and if it was
Hmm.
O P, the O would have to be right butting up against the straight line.
Yeah.
So those would need different spacing. So you can't do kerning in calligrapher.com. So that's the major thing. But you can create a template and print it out. And so they're basic templates right here. You can basically load up any characters that you think you're going to need. So right now what we have is minimal English plus computational, which is really not what you need. Probably what you generally need for a font for comics is minimal English, minimal punctuation, and then minimal numbers. But let's say you're going to have a bunch of Japanese characters too. You can add the minimal Japanese characters.
Whoa. Yeah, no, no thanks.
And then you can just hit download template, and it'll give you a ping image that shows the template. So the thing is, you're not actually probably going to want to just print out the template and draw on it. And the reason for that is because you don't generally do a very good job as a hand letterer uh, just drawing the letters in isolation. What you actually want is samples of it. So what I would recommend is people do is they write out a sentence that has all of the letters in the English language in it. So typically, the lazy fox jumps, or sorry, the quick fox jumps over the lazy dogs. Um, and that gives you all of the letters. You get a sample, you do it the size that you're comfortable with. And then what I would suggest is that you scan that and then cut each of these letters. So this is what I put together for Matt Battaglia, who's doing a book with with Living the Line. That'll come out next summer, most likely. And so this is Matt Battaglia's lettering blown up. And I just scanned it, and I asked him to write this many, many times, and then I took representative samples of each of these letters, and I put it on the template. So he didn't write it on the template. He actually did a sample where he wrote it larger than normal, and it looked bad. No offense, Matt, if you're watching. It just didn't look as natural as his normal lettering. So I just got him to write it at a good size, and then I went through and got the best representative samples of it, and then I aligned them with the guidelines that's presented on the template. And so you can see that the top character height should be that top line. The bottom character height should be that particular line. If you have a line that has a descender that goes underneath it, that's where that would go. And you try to get basically all of these letters to play nice together. And so make sure that they are essentially the same size, the same thickness, and all the same amount of cant. So in his case, his lettering has a slight backwards italic tilt to it. And so I've modified a few of those to make sure that they're essentially the same. And in his case, I made the uppercase and the lowercase function as alternates for each other. So these are the lowercase letters, but you can see they're mostly just alternate versions of the other letters. So like the K here is not the exact same K as this one right here.
That's an interesting way to add some like spice to it with keeping it upper and lowercase, with the only change being the barred I, really.
Exactly. This barred I, which you should only use for I or I'm. In comics, this barred I means I, a person, an individual. And so, that's the only real change. Other than that, I made them so that they're alternates. So, for instance, if he types in the word ass, and he doesn't like the way it looks because that S looks identical, he can make one of them a lowercase or an uppercase S, and he'll get an alternate right there.
That's smart. When you're putting these in here, some of them looks like you're putting them in with like a multiply of transparency, and some of them the white's like solid. Does that matter?
No, it doesn't matter because this thing when you send it to Calligrapher, it takes cues from the bounding box and the little symbol on the top, and so if it goes over the guidelines, it doesn't matter at all to those purposes.
So you can put them all on multiply and just to see where they line up with the top and bottom lines, and it will sort those out.
That's right. And I generally make a copy at the end so that I can make other modifications. So for instance, if I'll turn off my copy so you can see the last minute modifications I made.
Yeah.
I enlarged and changed the F. I cleaned up the
on the Y.
S. I got rid of the little strays on the Y and the X. I made the B smaller. And same thing with this. So, but other than that, all I did is take the best sample. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't do a bunch of redrawing on this because my goal is not to make something that's going to be perfect commercial font. My goal is to save him a huge amount of hand lettering and have something that we can do edits on together without him having to redraw something in order to do it.
I like your G, by the way, with that like extra little squiggle. Does he have that on all his Gs?
Most of them, yeah.
That's
no, that capital one. That's the one that I selected. That's interesting.
That's an interesting G. I like it.
When I had one that was like really like had attitude to it that was still like acceptable, I would usually make that the capital.
Yeah.
With the goal that like the lowercase are the ones that are going to be used the most,
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a few examples of that. The A is also fairly jaunty. Same thing with this B right here, the R. So, maybe that wouldn't be the B that you'd select to be the B that's always used. And this B is a little bit more normal, a little bit less jaunty. Yeah. After we load up this, which this could take like an hour to go through and refine each of the letters and select them and everything. You save that as an image, and you go back to Calligrapher, and Calligrapher will allow you to you go to the fonts page, and you can see all the fonts that I've made right here. A little clue is what I've been up to. Let's go ahead and do a new font, and we'll call this LTL sample. And we'll save that. And then it goes upload the template. And we're going to choose files to upload. And so we're going to go to the same place. We're going to go to House on Fire, which is the name of Matt's book. And we're going to go to Calligrapher template, which is where I've got them. And you can see I've got my version 2 of each of these templates. It only allows you to upload one at a time. Upload template. And it's going to populate this with all the characters that are on that template. And then we're going to go to add characters to our font.
Damn.
Upload template again. And let's see, which one did I miss? Here we go. So now I'm going to populate it with number 2. I'm going to hit upload template. Okay, add characters to my font. Oh.
You need a template 1.
Yeah. There's always a moment in each of these tech videos where I think to myself, this is the part where you screw up.
How do I get anything done?
And we'll go to override existing characters, add characters to our font. Okay. Did I do it this time? No. What the hell?
You overwrote it, so it replaced them instead of added a second. I'm assuming that's what happened, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Like,
oh, I didn't do version 2. Damn it. Okay.
Go to HOF template AV2.
Yeah.
And then don't override.
Right. No, I want to override. Yeah, override existing characters.
You want variants, don't you?
No, variants would be if you want to have because I want to have the upper and the lower present.
Wouldn't the upper and the lower be variants?
No, those aren't variants. They have a thing where you can only do it for certain kinds of programs. Will allow you to have automatically generated variants popping in and out. But the Adobe products don't always do that. Adobe products won't do that automatically.
Well, then it's good that we ran into this little hiccup. So
okay, there we go.
There we go.
So we're going to skip ahead to the part where I successfully uploaded them. Here it is.
No, we're going to leave it because that gave a good explanation of why you wouldn't want to have variants.
Okay, and so in order to get a preview for the font, we're going to have to hit build font, but I can already tell you we're going to want to edit the font details. So let's go ahead and build so you guys can see what it's going to look like. Okay.
Oh.
And so you can look and you can just see there's way too much space between the letters here. As a starting point. So we're going to close this and we're going to go to edit font details. And this will make global changes to this. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the letter spacing go way down and we're going to make the word spacing go way up. And let's just try this.
You can't see that while you're doing it.
Right. You got to rebuild the font to do it. So this is sort of a moving target. And so that is better, but we still need both those things. We still need to make the, we'll go ahead and view it at a smaller size too. We still need to make the letter spacing much smaller and then the word spacing a little bigger. So edit font details again. Build that font again.
John, this is going to be my whole summer now.
So you keep on tweaking that, and that looks good to me. Maybe our word spacing, is that too large a word spacing now, Carson? No, it's good, huh?
No, I like it.
Okay.
It feels like one letter width.
Right.
Which to me is appropriate.
Yeah, and you can see that we need the kerning already. So look at this yet. See the way that the E and the T are interacting?
Yeah.
and the Y and the S. So those should be closer together. This should be closer together. That's what we're going to do in our second program that we're going to use. You can't do kerning pairs inside of this program. So once you've got this to your liking, you're going to go to, we've actually got this almost done. So now the only thing left to do is our kerning.
Can
So
you
what we're
set the pre-programmed leading in here as well?
No, it just gives you a default
Okay.
for that. So now that we've got this, you can actually see the download here.
Yeah.
We can download it as a true type font, and we'll save that to our desktop. And then once we've got that saved, we're going to open up our other program here.
Matt's F's are so bombastic.
What's bombastic?
Matt's F's.
Oh yeah, I know.
They're very tall and like, ugh.
So this program is called BirdFont, and it is a minimal program in many ways, but in terms of its design and everything like that. But boy, is it versatile! And this is a free, or a shareware program that you can pay as low as $5 to use. So I bought this. I bought a professional version of this recently, and it is extremely versatile. Basically, it takes a little bit of time to figure out what you're doing, but you can do many of the things that you can do in extremely expensive programs, and you can do it fairly easily. So we're going to do what's called Show Kerning Tab. We're going to open up a Kerning tab. It's Control K, and you can open any font that you want to, and you can type whatever you want, and the top layer is your adjustment, and the bottom layers is live movement. So if you go between these two letters right here, I'll go between the U and the O, it makes a little arrow, and you just drag that arrow, and you see it drags the sample text at the same time.
Yeah.
And so now I've got a YO pair built into my font that has made the Y and the O integrated with each other. Same thing with this LAY. I want to have this Y nest with the A.
Yeah.
And so I just drag that until I get it correct. Same thing with the E here, the E and the Y. Now look at that layer.
Is there a sentence or something within the program that guarantees you see every letter combination?
No, that's a very good question. There's not. What I typically do for something like this is I will use the text from Alice in Wonderland, or I'll use like a Latin generating text, the lorem ipsum text, so that you get a wide range of things. But there's certain sentences that are very typical, such, or not sentences, like letters, like Sphinx, and things like that, that are sort of, what am I doing here? So I actually bought this 2 days ago, this program.
And are already an expert.
Yeah, exactly. I have not mastered it yet, because right now I'm trying to figure out how to type more, and I'm okay, so let's type in Sphinx. And that actually looks...
Now I know why your texts come through the way they do. You type like your word to translate.
You get an idea of sort of what the different possibilities are here. What questions do you have for me?
So once you do this, then you just save it, and that's automatically saved into the font.
That's right. Oh, so here's some Alice. It looks like this chunk of Alice that I just pasted in is a little bit too much for it to handle. But basically, I did very little on Matt's when I actually did it, and I found that the results were pretty quickly usable. I think I only kerned a few pairs, But mostly what I do is I paste in a few sentences of something and I do the kerning for that portion, and then a few more sentences and I do the kerning for that portion until I have it generally worked out. And
And
that
then
seems,
once the book is like in the lettering stage, because of the way you use InDesign, if you come across a problem, you just go pull that font in there, make the change, and then it will automatically update the whole book.
that's right. And that's one of the main arguments that I have for using that as a way of doing it. It gives you a sort of work in progress, aspect to it, especially just having the live updates is really something else. So you want to just see what the finished font looks like?
Yeah, the only other question I have is like, you said you hadn't had a font with styles, you just made them as separate fonts. Is there a function in there where you could add italics and
Yeah.
bolds and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
in that program rather than as separate fonts?
Well, yeah. I think that doing it as naturalistically as possible is a good idea. Um, so I think I generally try to do it naturalistically. Have somebody do it a second pass at the font, as opposed to you know trying to have a digital solution to it or whatever.
But you can't like scan those and then attach it to the font as a variation of
Oh
the.
no, you can make it as a variation. Yeah, no, it's just laziness. I just didn't set it up that way.
Okay.
A lot of these things are just the function of like being overworked.
Yeah.
I do it the way that makes sense in the moment, and go from there. But yeah, it's possible that next time I'll do that correctly as well. So here's Matt's. Here's the finished, or at least the in process font, and you can see that it actually looks pretty dang good.
Yeah, like the quotes could maybe move a little further away from the.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the quotes, that's not a kerning issue, that's a spacing issue, and so I'd be able to go in the BirdFont and select one of those characters on the character menu, and let's just close the.
You couldn't just kern the exclamation point and the scare quotes.
Well, you can, but it's easier to address it this way. So if you just click this, you see this right here?
Oh.
This is the spacing for it. So it's probably not a kerning issue, it's probably a spacing issue. So you just move the spacing where you want it. And spacing is a lot more likely to be affected by punctuation because the punctuation is needs more space. We got the letters space, so funkily. This is all just sort of automatically applied in the first stage, the calligrapher stage. So I'll go back to the overview, and now I'll have more spacing. So if we go back to our kerning sample or whatever, you got to re-export the font each time. But yeah, you can do the same thing and check the spacing on something else. So you can double click on this, you can see where the spacing is on that one. And you go back to the overview. Here's where the spacing is in that character. What's that?
I said I'm gonna play with this so much. You really just. I won't do any drawing this summer. It's all gonna be re-lettering Grant, man.
Type design only from here on out. And yeah, this is a really strong program, and it's a really featureful program, and it's quite amazing that I paid less than $10 for it, less than a cup of coffee. When the program that I was using in the past, we're talking hundreds of dollars. And the functionality is basically the same. There's a few quirks, but it's nothing that you can't learn fairly quickly. I mean, literally, this is the first time I used this program is yesterday, and now I'm making a demonstration video using it. So, not yesterday, 2 days ago. 2 days ago.
2 days.
Anyway, I think that's fairly straightforward. I guess I kind of just wanted to end it with this is similar to any other process where you can really just get crazy about your letter forms and want to be exactly make sure each of these is precise. But the thing is if you're using this to letter your comic, it really is not going to be the end of the world if it's not totally precise. Let's look at these L's here. One of the telltale signs of lettering, as I was saying before, that's digital, is having the letters be exactly the same. If I make one of these a capital L, we've immediately got some variation built in.
Yeah.
Very minor selective use of that right there is what would give this, make it so that it really has a, hand-drawn look to it. But
I think it already does, like even without the variation in it. He's not like, because of that leftward lean, because some of the letters are a little tall, like the F's seem like taller, it already has so much hand character to it that it doesn't feel like a tense.
Right. And we were talking about threaded text before. You can see why I do it.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that right there. You imagine the speed.
Well, and then like you're making these custom fonts and you want to fix the kerning, and it will automatically update that, or you want to change the size of the whole document at some point. Like you have a balloon where you're like, shit, I need my font to be a 7 instead of an 8 to make this one balloon fit, and then just update the whole document to match.
Right. Or but the sizing thing, the other thing you do, I'd break it out, and then if you select one of these and you use the scale button, you can scale all of that appropriately just with that particular thing, and you still got your style maintained.
Well, I'm saying if you feel like I want like a consistent size all the way throughout, and you decide you need to change it, it's as quick as just changing the whole thing all at once, which is me reflecting on how I do it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm such a dummy. This is so much better. Whoops.
I think this is a fairly unusual thing. If there's anybody else out there who letters in InDesign, I'd like to hear it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's mostly used in translations and things like that. But I find it to be incredibly useful, and it makes an awful lot of sense to me why you would do it this way. And yeah, so this font did not exist before 2 days ago, and now it does.
That's a beautiful font.
Yeah, well, thank Matt Battaglia for writing out those letter forms, and thank the gentleman, the people who put together Calligrapher and Bird for giving us the tools.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
Like I can already see like that plugging into Matt's art as well, and like looking like his art.
Right.
That's really special. I think when you use the computer generated fonts, they tend to deviate. They're less integrated looking. I don't know. I'd have to go back and see. Have you done it with your lettering and seen how it looks with your art?
Yeah, it's a little uncanny to type with my handwriting. It looks good. Yeah, and if you are going to go the computer lettering route, the thing that I would advise is that you try to pick a font that doesn't dominate or isn't too thin for the art, and sort of look at an average of the line density and try to get something that has a sort of median line density. If you draw real chunky, maybe having a slightly chunkier font is more appropriate. And if you draw real thin, people naturally balance those things out when they do everything themselves on the page. But yeah, like you're implying there, you rarely see that kind of balance in digital work. So
yeah, well, I'm just also thinking like, I'm curious to see what my own lettering would look like on top of my art, but I feel like mine wouldn't look good with my art, or so. I don't know, like especially like because I jump styles and stuff. I don't know. I'm just curious because it seems like you and Matt have like a pretty consistent approach, and that also shows up in your lettering. So I don't know. I'm just wondering like how many people feel like their lettering is an extension of the types of lines they make, and how many people almost go into a different mode.
Right.
Of like tighter production or something. I don't know. It's curious. It's opening up thoughts for me. But.
Well, I've got 5 fonts down now that I've made in a month, and I'm eager for more. So if somebody has a historical letterer that they really appreciate, I'm not going to make a Winsor McCay font.
But I would have had this on Strange Death for the Peanuts font.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I've thought about this now. But this, it's another tool in the quiver.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
this is what I was saying though, like for a book like Grant Man, where each page is supposed to look like a specific artist and their standard team, it's tempting to go, because you could just scan comics and then
uh,
plug those into the template and go from there, I'm assuming.
yeah, especially if you know how to reduce the thickness and get rid of the printed ballooned up quality to it, even
Ooh.
more.
Oh, I might be making some templates and then sending them to you to like, here, adjust it.
Awesome. I'd love to see it. And if anybody
All right.
else has any observations on making fonts, we'd love to hear from you. And not trying to be an expert or not pretending to be an expert on this. I'm just sort of sharing the things that we are, the things that I've done in the past month. And, it's very exciting for me. So
Yeah, very
get that,
exciting for me too. I got some ideas now. So
get,
thanks, Sean.
get to kerning.
Make sure to like, smash that subscribe button, and ring that bell.